The Zikron Empire believed they could do whatever they wanted. They were a mighty group of aliens who ruled over many planets in the galaxy. Their ships were huge, their cities sparkled with strange lights, and their leaders thought no one could stop them. They looked at humans and saw something small, something weak. To them, humans were like tiny bugs they could squash without anyone noticing. So they decided to do something cruel. They picked 10 humans, ordinary people with families and dreams, and sent them far away to a cold, lonely asteroid, a giant rock floating in space, covered in ice and darkness. They didn't give these humans a chance to speak or defend themselves. No one was told where they were going. No one was given a name. The Zikrons wanted it to stay a secret like it never happened. They thought no one would care. They thought the galaxy would stay quiet, but they were wrong. The galaxy was watching, and Earth was listening. The asteroid was a terrible place. It was so cold that your breath would freeze in the air. The ground was hard, slippery ice, and the sky was black, with no stars to make it feel less lonely. The Zikrons dropped the 10 humans there with nothing but the clothes they were wearing. No food, no water, no shelter. The aliens didn't even leave a message to explain why. They just left them to fade away, expecting the humans to give up and disappear. The Zikrons had done things like this before to other aliens who dared to question them. They thought this time would be the same. Nobody would notice, and nobody would fight back. But Earth wasn't like other planets. Humans weren't like other species. Even though the Zikrons were powerful, they didn't understand the strength hidden inside humans. The 10 humans weren't soldiers or heroes in stories. They were regular people. There was a teacher who loved showing kids how to read. There was a mechanic who could fix anything with a wrench and a smile. There was a nurse who stayed up late helping sick people feel better. Each one had a life, a home, a reason to keep going. The Zikrons didn't care about that. They saw humans as unimportant, like pieces on a game board they could throw away. They took these 10 people from their homes in the middle of the night. One moment, the humans were sleeping, laughing with friends, or eating dinner with their families. The next, they were dragged onto a Zikron ship, locked in a small, dark room and flown far away. The aliens didn't tell them where they were going or why. They just locked the doors and left them on that frozen rock. The Zikron leaders sat in their shiny palace high above their biggest planet. They laughed about what they had done. Humans are nothing, one leader said, his voice deep and cold. They'll freeze and no one will ever know. Another leader with glowing eyes nodded. Earth is weak. They won't fight us. They thought their plan was perfect. They thought they could hide their cruelty forever. They didn't know that someone somewhere was already paying attention. The galaxy wasn't as quiet as they thought. News travels fast, even in space. A small ship, not even part of the Zikron Empire, saw the humans being taken. Its crew whispered about it. They sent messages to other ships, to other planets. Word spread like a spark in dry grass. On Earth, people started to hear the rumors. A pilot came back from a trip and told his friends about a strange Zikron ship he saw near an asteroid. A scientist picked up a signal, a faint cry for help from a place no one should have been. Families noticed their loved ones were gone. A mother waited for her son to come home, but he didn't. A little girl kept asking where her dad was, but no one had answers. The whispers grew louder. People started asking questions. Where are they? Who took them? Earth wasn't a place that stayed quiet for long. Humans were curious, stubborn, and cared about each other. They wouldn't let 10 people vanish without a fight. The Zykrons didn't expect this. They thought Earth was too small, too far away to matter. They ruled over hundreds of planets with armies and weapons that could destroy entire worlds. What could one little planet do? They didn't know that humans were different. Humans didn't need big armies to care. They didn't need fancy ships to fight back. All they needed was a reason, and the Zykrons had just given them one. The 10 humans on the asteroid weren't just names or numbers. They were people with stories, with families who loved them, with friends who would never forget them. The Zykrons thought they could make them disappear, but they couldn't erase the truth. Far away on that icy asteroid, the 10 humans huddled together. They were cold, hungry, and scared, but they didn't give up. They held hands and talked to each other to stay strong. The teacher told stories to keep their spirits up. The mechanic tried to build a small shelter from bits of metal they found. The nurse checked on everyone, making sure they were okay. They didn't know if anyone would come for them, but they believed in each other. They believed in Earth. And they were right to believe, because Earth was already moving. People were talking, planning, getting ready. The Zykrons thought they had won, but they had only started something much bigger. The galaxy wasn't as big as it seemed. News traveled from one planet to another. A trader heard about the humans and told a miner. The miner told a pilot, and the pilot told a reporter. Soon, the story wasn't a secret anymore. People on other planets, not just humans, started to talk. The Zykrons went too far, they said. Those humans didn't do anything wrong. Even some aliens who worked for the Zykrons began to wonder if their leaders were wrong. The galaxy wasn't just watching now, it was starting to take sides. The Zykrons thought no one would care about 10 humans. They thought they could hide their cruelty in the dark. But the dark wasn't dark anymore. A light was growing, and it was coming from Earth. Back on the Zykrons' main planet, the leaders didn't know what was happening. They were too busy celebrating their power. They threw parties in their giant halls with music and food that glowed under strange lights. They thought they were untouchable. They thought their empire would last forever. But far away on Earth, people were waking up. They weren't loud about it. They didn't shout or make big speeches. They just started working. Scientists looked at maps of the galaxy, trying to find the asteroid. Pilots checked their ships, making sure they were ready to fly. Families wrote letters, asking for help from anyone who would listen. The Zykrons thought they had silenced the humans, but they had only made them louder. The 10 humans on the asteroid didn't know all this was happening. They didn't know the galaxy was talking about them. They didn't know Earth was getting ready to fight for them. But they felt something. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was the way they held each other's hands, refusing to give up. Maybe it was the stories they told in the dark about home, about the people they loved. They didn't have weapons or ships, but they had something the Zykrons didn't understand. They had each other. And that was enough to keep them going, even on a frozen rock in the middle of nowhere. The Zykrons made a big mistake. They thought humans were weak because they didn't have huge armies or shiny cities. They thought they could hurt people and get away with it. They thought silence would cover their tracks. But silence doesn't last forever. The galaxy was too big, too connected to stay quiet. And Earth was too strong, too stubborn to let 10 people disappear. The Zykrons thought they had won, but they had only lit a spark. That spark was growing into a fire, and it was about to change everything. The 10 humans stranded on the frozen asteroid weren't just random people. Each one had a life full of meaning, with friends, family, and dreams that tied them to Earth. They weren't soldiers or famous heroes from stories. They were everyday folks, but each had someone who cared about them deeply, someone with the power to make the Zykrons regret what they did. The aliens thought they could take these people, and no one would notice. They thought they could erase them like they never existed. But they didn't know these humans were connected to others who would never let them go. The Zykrons didn't just hurt strangers. They hurt the wrong people. One of the humans was named Layla. She was a teacher who loved books and kids. Her classroom was always full of laughter, with colorful posters on the walls and stacks of stories she read to her students. She had a way of making everyone feel special, like they could do anything. Leela's sister, Mara, was a brilliant scientist who worked in a lab filled with glowing screens and buzzing machines. Mara was known across Earth for inventing things that helped people, like a tiny device that could clean water in seconds. When Leela was taken, Mara stopped everything. She sat in her lab, staring at a picture of her sister, promising to find her. The Zykrons didn't know they had taken the sister of someone so smart, someone who could outthink their best plans. Another human was Javier, a mechanic with hands that could fix anything. He worked at a spaceport, repairing ships that zoomed between planets. His tools were his best friends, and he could make a broken engine hum like it was brand new. Javier was loved by his best friend, Tasha, a fearless commander in Earth's space fleet. Tasha led a team of pilots who flew fast ships to protect Earth's borders. She was tough, with sharp eyes and a voice that made everyone listen. When she heard Javier was gone, her heart sank. She gripped the controls of her ship and swore she'd bring him back. The Zykrons didn't realize they'd taken someone so close to a commander who never backed down from a fight. Then there was Aisha, a nurse who spent her days helping people feel better. She worked in a hospital, always smiling even when she was tired. She knew how to calm a scared kid or comfort someone in pain. Aisha was the daughter of Malik, a hacker who could break into any computer system. Malik worked in a hidden room filled with screens, his fingers flying over keyboards to find secrets others tried to hide. When Aisha disappeared, Malik's world stopped. He started searching for answers, his computers humming all night. The Zykrons had no idea they'd taken the daughter of someone who could unravel their digital walls. Another human was Sam, a farmer who grew food in giant greenhouses under Earth's bright sun. He loved the smell of dirt and the way plants grew strong under his care. Sam was the brother of Alina, a leader who helped run Earth's biggest city. Alina was calm but strong, making decisions that kept millions of people safe. When Sam was taken, Alina called a meeting in a quiet room, her face serious. She wasn't just a leader, she was a sister who would do anything to save her brother. The Zykrons didn't know they'd taken someone tied to a person with so much influence. There was also May, a young artist who painted pictures that made people stop and stare. Her murals covered walls in her neighborhood, showing stars, planets, and stories of hope. May was the best friend of Raj, a builder who designed bridges and buildings that reached into the sky. Raj was known for making things that lasted, things that could stand up to storms or time. When May vanished, Raj stopped his work and started asking questions. He wasn't loud, but he was determined. The Zykrons didn't understand that they'd taken someone so important to a man who could build anything, even a plan to fight back. Another of the 10 was Carlos, a cook who made meals that brought people together. His little restaurant was always full, with music playing and plates of warm food passed around. Carlos was the son of Sophia, a diplomat who traveled to other planets to make peace. Sophia was soft-spoken but tough, able to convince anyone to listen to her. When Carlos was taken, Sophia canceled her trips and turned her skills to finding him. She started talking to other planets, asking for help. The Zykrons didn't know they'd taken the son of someone who could rally whole worlds to her side. Then there was Priya, a librarian who knew every book in her quiet library. She helped kids find stories that made them dream of adventure. Priya was the cousin of Amir, a pilot who flew cargo ships through dangerous parts of space. Amir was brave, always ready to dodge asteroids or outrun pirates. When Priya disappeared, Amir parked his ship and started searching for clues. He knew the galaxy's hidden paths better than anyone. The Zykrons didn't realize they'd taken someone connected to a pilot who could navigate anywhere. Another human was Noah, a musician who played songs that made people dance or cry. His guitar was always with him, and his music filled the streets with joy. Noah was the nephew of Dr. Chen, a doctor who saved lives during disasters. Dr. Chen was calm under pressure, always knowing what to do when things went wrong. When Noah was taken, Dr. Chen put down her medical tools and started making calls. She wasn't just a doctor, she was family, and she wouldn't stop until Noah was safe. The Zykrons didn't know they'd taken someone so close to a person who never gave up. There was also Emma, a gardener who grew flowers that made her town beautiful. She loved teaching kids how to plant seeds and watch them grow. Emma was the daughter of Lucas, an engineer who built machines that powered entire cities. Lucas was quiet but brilliant, always solving problems others couldn't. When Emma was taken, Lucas turned his skills to a new problem, finding his daughter. He started designing tools to track the Zykrons. The aliens didn't know they'd taken the daughter of someone who could build anything. The last human was Leo, a storyteller who shared tales around campfires. His stories made people laugh and dream of better days. Leo was the brother of Zara, a strategist who planned missions for Earth's defense team. Zara was smart, always thinking 10 steps ahead. When Leo was taken, Zara gathered her team in a secret room and started planning. She wasn't just a sister, she was a master of strategy, and the Zykrons were about to face her best ideas. The aliens had no idea they'd taken someone so important to a woman who could outsmart them. Each of these 10 humans was special, not because they were famous or powerful, but because they were loved. They had families, friends, and people who would fight for them. The Zykrons thought they could take these people and no one would care. They thought humans were weak, easy to forget. But they didn't know about Mara, the scientist, or Tasha, the commander. They didn't know about Malik, the hacker, or Alina, the leader. They didn't know about Raj, the builder, or Sophia, the diplomat. They didn't know about Amir, the pilot, or Dr. Chen, the doctor. They didn't know about Lucas, the engineer, or Zara, the strategist. These weren't just random people. They were the heart of Earth, and Earth was ready to fight for them. The Zykrons had made a huge mistake. They thought they could hide what they did, but the galaxy was too big, too connected. Word was already spreading. A pilot heard about the missing humans and told a trader. The trader told a miner, and the miner told a friend on another planet. Soon, people everywhere were whispering about the Zikron's cruelty. On Earth, the families of the 10 humans were coming together. Mara was talking to Malik, sharing ideas. Tasha was meeting with Amir, planning a search. Elena was calling Sophia, asking for help from other worlds. Raj was working with Lucas, building tools to fight back. Dr. Chen was helping Zara, making sure their plans were perfect. The Zikrons thought they had won, but they had only started something bigger. These 10 humans weren't alone. They had each other, even on that frozen asteroid, and they had people back home who would never give up. Leela, Javier, Aisha, Sam, May, Carlos, Priya, Noah, Emma, and Leo. They were more than names. They were teachers, mechanics, nurses, farmers, artists, cooks, librarians, musicians, gardeners, and storytellers. They were the kind of people who made Earth special. And the people who loved them, Mara, Tasha, Malik, Alina, Raj, Sophia, Amir, Dr. Chen, Lucas, and Zara, were ready to show the Zikrons just how strong Earth could be. The aliens had hurt the wrong people, and they were about to find out what happens when you mess with humans. The humans didn't shout or make big speeches when they learned about the 10 people taken by the Zikrons. They didn't send angry messages or wave flags. Instead, they got quiet and started to act. They knew words wouldn't bring their loved ones back from the frozen asteroid. Actions would. So they began to move carefully and cleverly like players in a game the Zikrons didn't even know was happening. At first, it was small things, so tiny the aliens barely noticed. A Zikron ship vanished in the dark of space. A mining station stopped working, its machines falling silent. There were no loud battles, no warnings, no flashing lights. The Zikrons laughed when they heard about it. Just a mistake, they said. Nothing to worry about. But they were wrong. Something had started and it was growing. The missing ship was no accident. It was a cargo ship, heavy with supplies the Zikrons needed for their shiny cities. It was supposed to deliver food and tools to one of their biggest planets. One day it was flying through space, its engines humming. The next it was gone. No signal, no trace, no clue where it went. The Zikron captains scratched their heads, thinking it must have gotten lost or broken down. They sent out search teams, but the ship was nowhere to be found. What they didn't know was that a human pilot named Amir had been watching. Amir, the cousin of Priya, one of the exiled humans, knew every shortcut in the galaxy. He and his small crew had slipped close to the Zikron ship, quiet as shadows. They didn't fire weapons or make a fuss. They just hacked into the ship's controls, turned it off, and towed it to a hidden spot behind a moon. The Zikrons thought it was bad luck. It was. It was humans. The mining station was next. It was a big, ugly platform floating near a rocky planet, digging up metals the Zikrons used to build their machines. One morning it just stopped. The drills froze, the lights blinked out, and the workers stood around, confused. The Zikrons sent engineers to fix it, but every time they turned the power back on, it shut down again. They didn't know that Malik, the hacker father of Aisha, was behind it. Malik sat in his dark room on Earth, his computer screens glowing. His fingers danced over the keys, sending secret signals to the station's systems. He didn't break anything or hurt anyone. He just made the machines sleep, like turning off a toy. The Zikrons grumbled, thinking it was a glitch. They didn't see the pattern yet, but the humans did. These small acts were like pebbles dropped in a pond. The ripples were tiny at first, but they kept spreading. On Earth, people were working together, planning in secret. Mara, the scientist sister of Leela, was busy in her lab. She wasn't making water purifiers now. She was building tiny devices that could mess with Zikron technology. She sent them to pilots like Amir, who hid them on Zikron ships. The devices were small, no bigger than a coin, but they could shut down engines or scramble signals. Mara didn't tell anyone outside her team what she was doing. She knew the Zikrons might be listening. She worked late into the night, her eyes tired but sharp, thinking of her sister on that cold asteroid. Tasha, the commander and friend of Javier, was also moving. She gathered her pilots in a quiet hangar far from prying eyes. They didn't wear uniforms or fly big ships that would attract attention. Instead, they used small, fast shuttles that could dart through space without being seen. Tasha gave them simple orders: find their weak spots, make them nervous. Her team nodded and took off, slipping into the dark like ghosts. One of her pilots found a Zikron communication tower, a tall structure that sent messages between their planets. The pilot didn't blow it up or attack it. She just planted one of Mara's devices and the tower stopped working. The Zikrons couldn't send their messages anymore. They started to argue, blaming each other for the problem. Tasha smiled when she heard. It was working. Meanwhile, Raj, the builder and friend of May, was doing his part. He wasn't building bridges or skyscrapers now. He was making traps. Raj worked with a team of engineers, including Lucas, the father of Emma. They built small drones, no bigger than birds, that could fly into Zikron space and cause trouble. One drone landed on a Zikron fuel depot, a place where they stored energy for their ships. The drone didn't explode or start a fire. It just released a cloud of tiny particles that clogged the fuel lines. The depot shut down and the Zikrons couldn't refuel their ships. They sent workers to clean it up, but the drones kept coming back night after night. Raj and Lucas watched from Earth, checking their screens to see which drones were working. They didn't cheer or celebrate. They just kept building more. Sophia, the diplomat mother of Carlos, was using her skills too. She didn't fight with ships or drones. She fought with words. Sophia called leaders from other planets, aliens who weren't part of the Zikron Empire. She told them about the 10 humans, about the frozen asteroid, about the Zikron's cruelty. She spoke calmly, but her words were powerful. If they can do this to humans, she said, what will they do to you? Some aliens listened. They didn't like the Zikrons either. A few promised to stop trading with them, cutting off supplies the Empire needed. Sophia's words were like a net, slowly tightening around the Zikrons. They didn't even notice yet, but their empire was starting to feel the pressure. Dr. Chen, the doctor and aunt of Noah, was helping in her own way. She wasn't healing people now. She was gathering information. Dr. Chen knew how to stay calm in a crisis, how to find answers when things went wrong. She worked with Zara, the strategist sister of Leo, to figure out what the Zikrons were planning. They listened to radio signals, read reports, and studied maps of Zikron planets. Dr. Chen found out where the Zikrons kept their supplies and which ships were most important. She passed the information to Zara, who made plans like a chess player setting up a winning move. Zara didn't want a big war. She wanted small, smart strikes that would make the Zikrons think twice. Alina, the leader and sister of Sam, was bringing everyone together. She didn't shout or give orders. She listened. She met with Mara, Tasha, Malik, Raj, Lucas, Sophia, Dr. Chen, and Zara in a hidden room. They shared their ideas and made a plan. Alina made sure everyone knew their part. She was like a teacher making sure every kid in class was ready for a big project. "We don't need to destroy them," she said. "We just need to show them we're not afraid." Everyone nodded. They trusted Alina because she cared about their families as much as her own. She thought of Sam, her brother, out there on that cold rock, and it gave her strength. The Zikrons still didn't see the danger. They laughed when another ship stopped working. They shrugged when a power plant flickered and died. "It's nothing," their leaders said, sitting in their bright palace. "Humans are too small to matter." But the small things were adding up. A factory stopped making weapons. A water purifier broke down, leaving a Zikron city thirsty. A navigation system went offline and a fleet of ships got lost in space. The Zikrons sent more workers, more engineers, but the problems kept coming. They didn't know that every problem was part of a human plan, carefully built to make them worry. On the asteroid, the 10 humans didn't know about all this. They were still cold, still hungry, but they held on to hope. Leela told stories to keep everyone smiling. Javier built a small heater from scraps, just enough to warm their hands. Aisha checked on everyone, making sure they stayed healthy. Sam shared tips about staying warm like he'd learned on his farm. May drew pictures in the ice, giving them something beautiful to look at. Carlos sang songs to lift their spirits. Priya remembered poems from her library and recited them. Noah played a tune by tapping on a piece of metal. Emma shared stories of her garden, promising they'd see flowers again. Leo told tales of heroes, making them believe rescue was coming. They didn't know about the ships or the drones, but they felt something. They believed Earth was fighting for them. The galaxy was starting to notice too. Other aliens, not just humans, saw what was happening. A trader refused to sell to the Zikrons. A pilot warned others to stay away from their ships. The whispers grew louder, spreading from planet to planet. The Zikrons thought they were in control, but they were losing it bit by bit. The humans didn't need big armies or loud battles. They used brains, not bombs. They used teamwork, not tantrums. Every small act, a missing ship, a broken station, a quiet drone, was a message. The Zikrons laughed at first, but the laughter was fading. Something had started and it wasn't stopping. The Zikron Empire was used to being in charge. Their cities glowed with lights, their ships flew faster than comets, and their leaders believed no one could challenge them. For weeks, they laughed off the small problems popping up across their planets. A missing ship here, a broken station there. They thought it was just bad luck, like a toy breaking or a light bulb burning out. But one Zikron leader named Korak wasn't so sure. Korak was different from the others. He didn't sit in the shiny palace bragging about power. He studied reports, watched screens, and listened to whispers. One day he saw something that made his stomach twist. The problems weren't random. They followed a pattern. It was a plan. The humans weren't scared as the Zikrons had thought. They were getting ready, and Korak was the first to worry. Korak's office was deep inside a tall tower on the Zikron's main planet. The walls were covered in screens showing maps, numbers, and messages from across the empire. Most Zikron leaders ignored these details, but Korak studied them like a kid reading a favorite book. He noticed the reports piling up. A cargo ship vanished near a quiet moon. A fuel depot stopped working, leaving ships stranded. A communication tower went silent, cutting off a whole city. At first, he thought they were accidents. Machines break sometimes, he told himself. But then he saw the dates and places. The problems were happening too close together in too many important spots. It was like someone was poking holes in the empire, one by one. Korak called his assistants into his office. They were nervous, their glowing eyes darting around. "Show me the latest reports," he said, his voice low but firm. They handed him a tablet filled with data. He scrolled through it, his fingers moving fast. A water plant had shut down, leaving a town thirsty. A factory making Zikron weapons had stopped, its machines frozen. A navigation system for their biggest fleet had gone haywire, sending ships off course. Korak leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. These weren't glitches. Someone was doing this on purpose, and he had a bad feeling he knew who. The other Zikron leaders didn't want to listen. They gathered in their grand hall, surrounded by glittering walls and floating lights. They ate strange, glowing food and talked about their next big plans. When Korak tried to speak, they waved him off. "You worry too much," said Varn, a leader with a booming voice. "These are small problems. We rule the galaxy." The others nodded, their laughter echoing. Korak stayed quiet, but his mind didn't stop. He knew the Empire was strong, but even the strongest wall could crack if you hit it in the right spots. And the humans, he suspected, were hitting all the right spots. Back in his office, Korak pulled up a map of the galaxy. He marked every place where something had gone wrong. Red dots appeared on the screen, forming a trail. It wasn't scattered. It was careful, like a path leading somewhere. He zoomed in on the planets, moons, and stations that had been hit. They were all important, places the Zikrons needed to keep their empire running. Fuel depots powered their ships. Factories built their tools. Communication towers kept their leaders connected. Someone was targeting these places, making the empire weaker bit by bit. Korak's heart beat faster. He had heard about the 10 humans sent to the frozen asteroid. He hadn't agreed with it, but he hadn't stopped it either. Now, he wondered if that cruel act had started something dangerous. Korak called a meeting with his top advisors. They sat around a table, their faces serious. "Tell me about the humans," he said. One advisor, a thin Zikron named Siles, spoke up. "They're weak," she said. "Their planet is small, their ships are slow, they can't fight us." Korak frowned. "Then why are our systems failing?" he asked. Siles looked down, unsure. Another advisor, a gruff Zikron named Torv, shrugged. "Maybe it's rebels or pirates." Korak shook his head. Rebels were loud and pirates left clues. These attacks were quiet, clean, and smart. He thought of Earth, a blue planet far away, and the people who lived there. He had underestimated them, and now he was paying for it. The next day, another report came in. A Zikron outpost, a small base on a rocky moon, had gone dark. No messages, no signals, nothing. Korak sent a team to check it. They found the outpost empty, its machines turned off, its supplies untouched. There were no signs of a fight, no broken doors, no burn marks from weapons. It was like the workers had just walked away. But Korak knew better. He studied the outpost's logs, the records of what happened before it went quiet. A single line caught his eye. A tiny signal, not Zikron, had entered the system just before the shutdown. It was so small most would have missed it. Korak didn't. He knew it was human. The Zikrons started to feel the effects. On one planet, people lined up for water because the purifiers weren't working. On another, ships sat idle, waiting for fuel that never came. Workers grumbled, wondering why their tools kept breaking. The Empire was like a giant machine, and now it was stuttering. Korak tried to fix things. He sent more engineers to the factories, more pilots to the depots. But every time they fixed one problem, another appeared. A power grid flickered out. A supply ship got lost. A computer system crashed, erasing important data. Korak's advisors were confused, but he was. He saw the truth. The humans were fighting back, and they were good at it. Korak went to the palace to warn the other leaders again. This time they listened, but only a little. Varn crossed his arms, his eyes narrow. "If it's the humans, we'll crush them," he said. Korak shook his head. "We don't even know where they are," he replied. "They're not fighting like we do. They're hiding, planning, striking when we're not looking." The room grew quiet. Another leader, a Zikron named Lura, spoke up. "What do they want?" she asked. Korak didn't hesitate. "They're people," he said. "The ones we sent to the asteroid." The leaders shifted in their seats. They didn't like being reminded of that decision. Varn snorted. "Let them try, they'll fail." But Korak saw the doubt in their eyes. They weren't as sure as they sounded. Back on Earth, the humans were busy. They didn't know Korak was watching, but they didn't need to. Their plan was working. Mara, the scientist, sent more of her tiny devices to Zikron's systems. Malik, the hacker, kept shutting down their machines from far away. Tasha's pilots flew quick missions, planting traps and disappearing before anyone noticed. Raj and Lucas built more drones, sending them to new targets. Sophia convinced more aliens to stop helping the Zikrons. Dr. Chen and Zara studied the Empire's weaknesses, finding new places to strike. Alina kept everyone together, making sure they stayed focused. They weren't loud or flashy. They were smart, patient, and determined. Korak couldn't sleep. He stayed in his office, staring at the screens. Every day brought new problems. A Zikron bank lost its records, causing confusion. A food warehouse locked itself, trapping supplies inside. A military base lost its lights, leaving soldiers in the dark. Korak tried to trace the attacks, but the humans were too clever. They left no footprints, no clues. He felt like he was chasing shadows. He called his advisors again, his voice sharp. "We need to find them," he said. "Search every planet, every ship, every signal." Silis nodded, but Torv looked worried. "What if we can't?" he asked. Korak didn't answer. He didn't want to think about that. The Zikron people were starting to talk. They noticed the shortages, the delays, the broken machines. They asked questions, but their leaders had no answers. Some whispered about the humans, about the 10 sent to the asteroid. "Maybe we shouldn't have done that," one worker said to another. The whispers spread, like a breeze turning into a storm. Korak heard them and knew they were dangerous. If the people lost trust in the Empire, it could fall apart. He worked harder, trying to fix the problems, but the humans were always one step ahead. Korak thought about the asteroid, about the 10 humans freezing out there. He hadn't wanted to send them, but he hadn't stopped it either. Now he wondered if that was the biggest mistake of all. The humans weren't weak as the Zikrons had thought. They were strong in a way Korak didn't understand. They didn't need big armies or loud battles. They used brains, not fists. They fought for each other, not for power. Korak felt a chill, not from the cold, but from the truth. The Empire was in trouble, and it was because of those 10 humans. The other leaders started to worry too, though they didn't admit it. Varn stopped laughing. Lura asked for daily reports. They sent more ships to patrol, more workers to fix things, but it didn't help. The humans kept striking, quiet and fast. Korak knew the Empire couldn't keep up. He sat alone in his office, the screens glowing around him. The red dots on his map were growing like stars in a dark sky. He didn't know what the humans would do next, but he knew one thing: they weren't stopping. The Zikrons had thought they were untouchable. Now they were learning they weren't. Back on Earth, something big was happening, but it was hidden from the world. Deep in a quiet building, far from bright lights and noisy crowds, a group of people gathered in a plain room. There were no flags on the walls, no cameras flashing, no reporters asking questions. Just a few people sitting around a simple table, their faces serious. These weren't just any people. They were leaders, each one tied to the 10 humans stranded on the frozen asteroid. They had lost sisters, brothers, daughters, and friends. They weren't here to make speeches or argue. They were here to win, to bring their loved ones home, and to show the Zikron Empire that Earth was not weak. The room was small, with gray walls and a single light overhead. No one wore fancy clothes or badges. They didn't need them. Everyone knew why they were there. Elena, the leader and sister of Sam, sat at the head of the table. Her eyes were calm but fierce, like a captain steering a ship through a storm. Next to her was Mara, the scientist who missed her sister Leela. Mara's hands were full of papers covered in drawings of tiny machines. Across from her sat Tasha, the commander and friend of Javier, her arms crossed, ready for action. Malik, the hacker and father of Aisha, stared at a small computer, his fingers twitching like they wanted to start typing. Raj, the builder and friend of May, leaned forward, sketching plans on a notepad. Lucas, the engineer and father of Emma, nodded as he listened. Sophia, the diplomat and mother of Carlos, spoke softly but with power. Amir, the pilot and cousin of Priya, tapped his foot, eager to fly. Dr. Chen, the doctor and aunt of Noah, took notes, her face focused. Zara, the strategist and sister of Leo, drew maps on a screen, pointing out key spots in the galaxy. They were a team, united by love and purpose. Elena spoke first, her voice steady. "The Zikrons think we're weak," she said. "They took our families and left them to freeze, but we're not weak. We're smart and we're going to bring them home." Everyone nodded. They didn't need to talk about how much they hurt. They could see it in each other's eyes. Instead, they focused on the plan. It wasn't loud or showy like a parade or a battle. It was quiet, clever, and careful, like setting up a trap for a clever fox. The Zikrons were strong, with big ships and tall cities, but the humans had something stronger. They had each other, and they had a reason to fight. Mara went next, holding up one of her tiny devices. It looked like a shiny pebble, small enough to fit in your hand. "These can shut down Zikron machines," she said. "We've already used them on their ships and stations. They don't even know what's hitting them." She explained how her team had built hundreds of these gadgets, each one able to mess with Zikron technology without breaking it. They could turn off engines, dim lights, or stop computers. Mara's plan was to send more of these to key places like the Zikron's fuel depots or factories. "We don't need to fight," she said. "We just need to make their lives hard." The others smiled. They liked that idea. Tasha leaned forward, her voice sharp like a knife. "My pilots are ready," she said. "We've been hitting their weak spots, communication towers, supply lines, small bases. We don't stay long. We get in, plant Mara's devices, and get out before they see us. She described how her team used small, fast ships that could hide in the shadows of moons or asteroids. They didn't fire weapons or start fights. They just left little surprises that made the Zikron's machines stop working. Tasha's eyes sparkled with pride. "They're starting to notice," she said. "They're getting nervous." The room felt a little warmer, like hope was growing. Malik spoke up, his voice quiet but sure. "I've been inside their systems," he said, pointing to his computer. "Their computers talk to each other, but I can make them say the wrong things." Malik had been hacking into Zikron networks, changing their plans, locking their doors, or making their screens go blank. He didn't destroy anything, he just made things confusing. One day, a Zikron bank couldn't find its money. Another day, a factory got orders to stop working. Malik's fingers were like magic, turning the Zikron's own technology against them. "They don't know it's us," he said with a small grin, "but they will." Raj and Lucas talked about their drones. "We're building more every day," Raj said, showing a sketch of a drone that looked like a tiny bird. "They're small, but they can do big things." The drones could fly to Zikron planets and drop Mara's devices in hard-to-reach places. Lucas added, "We've made them quiet so they don't get caught. They can sneak into a power plant or a shipyard and shut things down before anyone notices." Raj and Lucas had been working late, their workshops buzzing with tools and ideas. They weren't just building machines. They were building hope piece by piece. Sophia, the diplomat, spoke about her work. "I've been talking to other planets," she said. "Not everyone likes the Zikrons. Some are willing to help us." She had called leaders from faraway worlds, telling them about the 10 humans on the asteroid. She didn't yell or beg, she just told the truth. Her words were like seeds, planting doubt about the Zikrons in other aliens' minds. Some planets stopped sending supplies to the Empire. Others refused to let Zikron ships land. Sophia's quiet voice was making the Empire smaller, one conversation at a time. "They're losing friends," she said, "and that makes them weaker." Dr. Chen and Zara worked together, their heads close as they studied a map on Zara's screen. Dr. Chen spoke first. "We've been learning about the Zikrons," she said. "Their empire is big, but it has cracks." She pointed to places where the Zikrons stored food, fuel, or weapons. "If we hit these spots, they'll feel it." Zara nodded, her eyes sharp. "We're not starting a war," she said. "We're playing a game and we're winning." Zara's maps showed every Zikron planet, every ship, every weak point. She marked where Tasha's pilots should go, where Mara's devices should be placed, where Malik's hacks would hurt the most. Her plans were like a puzzle, each piece fitting perfectly to make the Zikrons stumble. Elena listened to everyone, her hands folded. She didn't interrupt or rush them. When they finished, she stood up. "We're not fighting for power," she said. "We're fighting for Layla, Javier, Aisha, Sam, May, Carlos, Priya, Noah, Emma, and Leo. We're fighting for our families." The others nodded, their hearts heavy but strong. Elena looked at each person. "We keep going. We stay quiet, stay smart, and don't stop until they're home." The room was silent, but it wasn't a sad silence. It was the kind of quiet that comes before a big moment, like the pause before a race starts. Outside the room, Earth was busy but calm. No one knew about the secret meeting. There were no big announcements, no crowds cheering. The people in the room didn't want fame. They just wanted their families back. They worked in the shadows, sending drones, flying ships, hacking systems, and talking to allies. Every move was small but important, like drops of water wearing down a rock. The Zykrons didn't see it yet, but their empire was starting to shake. A ship couldn't fly. A city lost power. A factory stopped building. Each problem was a message from Earth. We're coming for you. The humans in the room thought about the asteroid, about the 10 people shivering in the dark. They didn't know if their families were okay, but they believed in them. Leela was telling stories to keep hope alive. Javier was fixing scraps to make a shelter. Aisha was caring for everyone, like a nurse in a storm. Sam was sharing his farmer's tricks to stay warm. May was drawing pictures to make them smile. Carlos was singing to lift their spirits. Priya was reciting poems to remind them of home. Noah was tapping out music on metal. Emma was talking about flowers, promising they'd see them again. Leo was telling tales of heroes, giving them courage. The humans on Earth didn't know these details, but they felt their family's strength. It pushed them to keep going. The plan wasn't about destruction. The humans didn't want to burn Zikron cities or start a war. They wanted the Empire to feel their mistakes, to understand that taking 10 people was wrong. Every drone, every hack, every quiet strike was a way to say, give them back. The Zikrons thought they could hide their cruelty, but Earth was shining a light on it. The galaxy was starting to notice, too. Other planets heard about the humans' fight. Some sent secret messages offering help. Others watched, waiting to see what would happen. The Zikrons were losing their grip, and the humans were just getting started. Alina ended the meeting with a simple promise. "We'll meet again soon," she said. "Keep doing your part. Stay safe, stay smart, and don't give up." The others left the room one by one, slipping back into their lives. Mara went to her lab, building more devices. Tasha returned to her pilots, planning the next mission. Malik sat at his computer, diving into Zikron systems. Raj and Lucas worked on their drones, making them faster and quieter. Sophia called more alien leaders, spreading the word. Dr. Chen and Zara studied their maps, finding new targets. They didn't talk about the plan outside the room. They didn't need to. They trusted each other, and they trusted their plan. The Zikrons didn't know about the secret room or the people inside it. They didn't know about the devices, the drones, or the hacks, but they were starting to feel the effects. Their empire was stumbling like a giant tripping over tiny stones. Korak, the Zikron leader who saw the pattern, was getting more worried. He sent more ships to patrol, more workers to fix things, but it wasn't enough. The humans were too fast, too clever. Every day something new went wrong. A signal tower stopped working. A supply line broke down. A city lost its lights. The Zikrons didn't know it, but Earth's secret plan was growing stronger, and it was aimed right at them.